Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do a video, it's probably going to be in 3 parts, but I wanted to help fans, collectors find Roz Williams tracks that are on compilations or just not on the normal standard releases that can be a little hard to find and a little tricky because of titling on some of them. The first video is going to focus on Christian Death. The second video is going to focus on Shadow Project, Daucus Carota, and Roz Williams. And then the final video will be the hard one. That's going to focus on the Noise Project's Helter PE 1334. With that said, let's get into the Christian Death. Let's start at the beginning. The focus of this video is going to be what the tracks are, where to find them, and whether or not it's worth seeking them out because of price point, because of bad titling that makes you think it's a unique track, or, you know, maybe it's something that's really unique that you should have in your collection. So in this video, I'm going to focus primarily on collectors because, you know, if you're a completist that wants everything, like myself, that wants everything Roz Williams recorded, that's unique, that's different versions, you want it in your collection. If you're just a digital collector looking for sound files, this video probably will only assist you in what you can avoid downloading, but it really, you know, you're not out of pocket cost on any of these. So again, this video is primarily for the collectors that are going to spend money out of their pocket to obtain these items. And if you're a digital collector, I recommend, you know, stay, watch, and you can probably, you know, learn some information that if you are a Roz Williams fan, that can be useful. The very first song we're going to focus on is Dogs, released in 1981 on the Hell Comes to Your House compilation. This is arguably the first Christian Death official release. It is a compilation. There's several bands on there. But I do think that because of the price point on this, it has been reissued several times. You can probably pick up a CD for $20-ish. Vinyl probably for around $30. Original pressings of the vinyl are going to run you $70 to $100. And original release on cassette, they're rare. They probably will run you $30 to $50. But again, I think you can avoid this one because Dogs was released on Death Wish, which you should have in your collection if you're a collector of Roz Williams recordings. Those 6 demos, we'll talk about those later. They show up a number of times on a number of releases with different titles. But again, Dogs is on Death Wish if you have Death Wish, or if you plan to obtain it. I would go for that as opposed to spending your money on Hell Comes to Your House. If you're a completist, you're going to want this only because it is an official release. It is rare. And the 45 grave tracks that appear on this soundtrack compilation are unique to this version. They do not appear anywhere else. So if you're a Death Rock fan, 45 Grave fan, which many Christian Death fans are, you'll want this for the 45 grave tracks because the 3 tracks that are on here, like I said, are exclusive to this release. Alright, so this is probably a good time to talk about some Christian Death tracks that show up quite a bit on a number of releases throughout the years. These are usually titled as demos. For example, Romeo's Distress demo, Death Wish demo, Cavity version, Desperate Hell demo. Every single time these tracks have actually been just the versions that appear on Death Wish. Those are essentially demos. They're kind of finished demos. There are demos from Only Theater of Pain out there that are really raw and rough. They're in the hands of very few people. They've never been officially released. So if you're seeing a compilation or a special 7-inch out there that looks like it might have a new track or a new version of a track that you've never heard, be wary of it. Again, Death Wish demo, Romeo's Distress demo, Cavity version, I believe are the only ones I've seen. But the other 3 tracks on here, Dogs, Desperate Hell, and Spiritual Cramp, you know, those certainly could at any time show up as demos, and I would suspect that they would be from Death Wish. So just be mindful of that if you're going to be spending money on something new. If it's because of those tracks, just be cognizant of the fact that they're probably from Death Wish. So if you have that in your collection, you could probably skip those, unless again you're a completist and want to have everything in your collection. So with that said, let's move on. Next up is Invocation and Invocation 2. Again, both of these were released in 1981, or recorded in 1981, but they didn't see the light of day until 1993. These are questionable whether or not you want these. They appeared on the Cleopatra Records release, Invocations. And I do recommend that release because what that release does is it takes an existing bootleg that was out there called Sticks a Finger Down Your Throat, and takes a bunch of those tracks and some other material that, I don't know, existed on bootlegs only, like tape trades, and kind of compiles all of that. And so Invocation and Invocation 2, whether or not those are the actual titles, that's questionable. These are live versions. Their quality is so-so. And again, we don't know what these were actually titled. They're mostly sound pieces, not a lot of vocal. So again, questionable whether or not these are necessary to have in your collection, but they are unique. And again, they're live and they're varying quality, and they appear on Invocations from 1993 on Cleopatra Records. The original CD is out of print, but you can still find it on eBay pretty cheap. The cassette version is very difficult to find, and the vinyl, I have to do some digging to see if these were released on vinyl, and I will do that. But I don't believe they have been released on vinyl. So let's jump to 1982, and we have a song called Requiem. Requiem is not the actual title of this song. It appears on the American Gothic compilation CD from Germany, I believe, in 1988. And Requiem is actually a bootleg recording. I think it's from Al's Bar in 1982. They are good quality, and it's a medley of Dream for Mother and Dogs. And they have recorded or blended these 2 tracks together into one song and titled it Requiem. So it's not a unique track. If you have the Al's Bar recording from 1982, I believe it's that same recording. You do not need these. And the American Gothic CD can set you back probably around $20 to $30. It is an import. It is out of print, and it's from the 80s. So it's something you can avoid. Not brand new songs, live versions of Dream for Mother and Dogs. So next up from 1982 is Into the Light and Stick a Finger Down Your Throat. Into the Light, you probably know, would be later released on Shadow Project's debut. And Stick a Finger Down Your Throat. This is an oddball recording from the early 80s that probably was another song that Roz was working through. And a lot of the early bootlegs, you will notice that Roz was working through lyrics and putting those lyrics on an existing track. There are famous versions of that, that none of which are coming to mind at the moment. But there are some songs from Catastrophe Ballet that appear early in Christian Death, like recordings from like 1981, 1982, where lyrics from Catastrophe Ballet or overtop a song that would be on Only Theater of Pain. So anyway, so Into the Light, it's a live version that's not very good quality. On the Sticks a Finger Down Your Throat bootleg that was released in '92. That version is terrible quality. There is a version on a compilation CD from Cleopatra called Death Club, where the version is much improved. It's cleaned up, definitely been run through some filters, and it's an improved version. So if this is a song that you love, which it is a song that I love, it's interesting to hear a very early version. So moving on, Working on Beyond, original version, quote marks around that, Face, original version, 666th Communion, Snake Pit, and Trials. I do recommend having these because, again, these are tracks that Roz was working through. And the theory among many Roz fans and collectors is that these songs, along with the Stick a Finger Down Your Throat, Snake Pit, Trials, Face, Working on Beyond, Into the Light, the working theory is that these were probably tracks that Roz was lining up for a planned follow-up to Only Theater of Pain with the pre-Pompeii 99 lineup. So, there is some evidence to suggest that Roz had planned to go back into the studio to record a follow-up to Only Theater of Pain as the pieces of the original Christian Death were kind of falling apart. So, with all of these songs sort of in the planning process, and Roz finally hooking up with Pompeii 99 to form the Mark II version of Christian Death, they decided to rework a few of the songs, but for the most part, all of them got shelved because Valor was bringing in his influences along with, Jeton and David Glass, and so to make that melding work, they started fresh, and really the only recording that survived out of those early demos or workable songs was Face, which would appear on Ashes, and as I mentioned earlier, there were some tracks that Roz had lyrics for but didn't have any music for. I think it's Electra Descending, but I could be wrong. So again, working theory, these tracks were meant for a follow-up to Only Theater of Pain prior to the Pompeii 99 union. So for that reason, I think they're worth having. They're of varying quality. These are all live, and whether or not the titles are accurate, we don't really know. Skeleton Kiss is another track that would fall into that umbrella of a follow-up album. Obviously, Working on Beyond, Into the Light, Roz pulled those out of the catacombs for Shadow Project, and there's probably other things out there that, as more and more of Roz's writings surface, we'll probably discover. So, again, Invocations, that was released by Cleopatra in 1993. I have to give them credit. It was a very worthy compilation of some really interesting tracks that were rare, pretty obscure, and if you were in the tape trading community did you ever get exposure to these. So pick up Invocations. It's definitely worthwhile having. Alright, next let's jump to 1983. Sleepwalk original version. Okay, so this appears on the Invocations compilation from Cleopatra Records. I definitely recommend having this because this is a snapshot of another track that was probably meant for the follow-up to Only Theater of Pain. This one survived, but this early version tells you what a follow-up to Only Theater of Pain would have sounded like. It's not like the Pompeii 99 Mark II Christian Death. This is a raw, gritty version of Sleepwalk. Not goth, death rock. So definitely recommend. If you've not heard it, it's out there a lot. It's on a lot of different compilations. I would pick this up for sure. And again, it's on Invocations from Cleopatra Records, released in 1993. Alright, so next, 1985, the magical year where Roz left Christian Death. There was some material recorded, believe it or not, and there's quite a bit. So we're going to start with this Mirage. This was a teaser for many Roz fans from Cleopatra Records as a brand new track. And unless you had Sticks a Finger Down Your Throat, yes, it was a brand new track. And even if you had that bootleg CD, this was still a new track because Roz did some post-production on it and brought in Eric Christides, and they finalized this track. And it appeared on the Black Bible, which was a huge multi-disc set from Cleopatra Records, which I think was running for like $60 when it came out in 1998. And unfortunately, I think that might still be the only way you can pick this up. Yeah, I don't know that this one's been provided anywhere else. No, you know what? It's on Death Club. The compilation CD called Death Club. It's probably gonna run you about $30. Maybe 20. It's pretty common. It's the predecessor to Death Box, and it is on there, so that would be a cheaper alternative than finding the Black Bible. Unless you're really a huge fan of Cleopatra Records and you love all of the bands that they were releasing in the 90s, then pick up the Black Bible because you'll be in goth heaven. How to describe this track? This track is very similar to Lament Over the Shadows, in that it has a very German accordion sound, like early German, you know, 1940s Germany, cabaret, accordion music. So if you like Lament Over the Shadows, you'll probably be a big fan of this song. Which leads me into German Beer Hall Song. German Beer Hall Song is the earliest version of this Mirage. And it's the demo version of what would become that track. There's no vocals, it's just the music. And it's interesting, but it is basically this Mirage without vocals, so I'd say that's questionable, whether or not you want to have it. And you know, this is probably a good time to say, the Sticks the Finger Down Your Throat, Down Its Throat, bootleg compilation. Cleopatra has pretty much raped this of all its unique qualities. It was a must-have for Roz collectors when it was released. Because it contained all this material that nobody had heard, unless you were a tape trader. So, you know, Sticks a Finger Down Its Throat has now lost all of its appeal, and it's rare. They used to show up on eBay quite a bit. Now, they rarely do. So, I think you can skip it at this point, unless, again, you're a completist and you want to have everything. Sticks a Finger Down Its Throat is what you would call an official bootleg, I think, because it was released by people associated with Roz, and I'll just leave it at that. Next tracks, Halos and Specter, Love is Dead. Again, 1985 tracks, and again, these appear on Invocations. So these are studio versions, they're very clean, and these are incredible songs. You must have these. They are on numerous compilations, but if you're picking up Invocations, just pick up Invocations. It's going to have everything that you want on it. And these are amazing recordings. I don't know if there's post-production on these. I've never heard a different version than what appears on Sticks a Finger Down Its Throat and Invocations and all the other various versions it's been released. I've never heard a different version of these songs. So I don't know if there was post-production done on these, like there was with this Mirage. But whatever the case, they're beautiful songs. And among like lost Roz tracks, or whatever you want to call them, compilation tracks, these are really high on the list. So pick up Invocations. Again, in 1985, there was a song called Art, A-R-T, and it was released in 1999 on Blorp Estate, which is another compilation. I'm not positive. I think this is a German compilation, but I could be wrong on that. It's an interesting track. This is basically Invocation 3, which appears on Sticks a Finger Down its Throat, and on Invocations. This is a studio track. This isn't live. So, is it titled Art? Is it titled Invocation 3? Or is it titled Introduction to a Film, as it appears on Sticks a Finger Down Its Throat? I don't know. It's a demo. It's quite good. And it is a bridge between Christian Death and Roz's spoken word, maybe some premature ejaculation. It's an early track. I'm guessing it's around 1985. It could be earlier. This could have been intended for that follow-up to Only Theater of Pain. I don't know, but the year is questionable. The title's questionable. But I think it's a must-have. It's a really great track. It's really well done. And now the controversial track from 1985. I do believe this song is titled Lullaby. And, but its first appearance was as Enfant Vexio, which appeared on the Christian Death compilation Insanus Altio Proditio Misericordiac. And this compilation is really interesting. There's not a lot of information included with the original versions of this album. It was even uncertain whether it was a compilation, because some versions of the album didn't really have a lot of information. Like, we didn't know if this was a new album or what this was, but it is all over the place musically. Like, if you were ever wondering what Christian Death sounded like as a funk band, this would be your album to go to find out. It's really interesting. In my personal opinion, this might cover a period from Pompeii 99 all the way up to Valor's release of All the Love, All the Hate. And I only say that because there are tracks on here that remind me of Pompeii 99, and there are tracks on here that sound like they would fit into the latter part of the 80 version of Christian Death, when they were starting experimenting more with a metal sound. And I do believe that the title Enfant Vexatio only came from the fact that all the song titles on this were giving a Latin theme, or a Latin title, to fit in with the title of the album. So I think Lullaby is the actual title. But here's where it gets tricky. The original pressings of this album have Roz's vocals and Roz's lyrics. Later pressings that came out, and those versions were all from Contempo. Later versions that came out have Roz's vocals either muted or removed. Now Valor's vocals are in place of Roz's. So I'm not sure why that was done. You know, there's a lot of fan theories about Valor and Roz, but there is, I do believe, like listening to the later versions of this album, that there was other post-production done to other tracks on the album other than just this one track. This is the only track on the album that features Roz Williams. And I do believe there's post-production done on other songs on this album other than just Enfant Vexatio. So I'm willing to play devil's advocate there. There are later versions of this album that the Roz version is included as a bonus track. Valor's version is supplemented where it was in the liner and the track listing, but Roz's track is included as a bonus. So the way to identify it, if it's Valor's vocals, it's just titled Vexatio. If it's Roz's version, it's Enfant, I-N-F-A-N-S, Vexatio. And again, I do believe this song is called Lullaby. And if you don't want to try to find an early version of Insanus Altio Proditio Misericordiac, you can pick up the Cleopatra compilation, Tales of Innocence, a continued anthology. The majority of the material on this is Valor's Christian Death, but there are some Roz tracks on here, and Lullaby is included. So I think definitely pick it up there. So it is probably my favorite track. Halos and Specter Love is Dead, a close second. But Lullaby is probably my favorite side release or compilation release Roz track. I mean, it is album worthy. It's an amazing song. It's a beautiful song. So I definitely highly recommend finding it and adding it to your collection. So I'm going to talk about in 1989 two songs, Dodo and Down in the Park, both cover songs, one Bowie, one Gary Newman. These are varying quality. They're both live, and I only brought these up because they are on compilations and they don't appear anywhere else. Dodo is on Invocations, so as I said, pick that up and you're going to have this. Down in the Park is a little bit trickier. It's only on the CD version of the Iron Mask. The cassette version of the Iron Mask has a different live track. So, these are both recorded live in 1989. Varying quality. You know, if you like Gary Newman, if you like Bowie, and you've never heard these, you know, it might be worthwhile to add to your collection. It is worthwhile definitely to have the cassette and the CD of the Iron Mask and also the vinyl, but the cassette has a track that's not on any other version, so there you go. Jumping to 1993, we have Mother, and this, I only bring this one up because I spent a lot of money to obtain a album by Blind Embrace. That's the name of the artist, and I found out later that was Controlled Bleeding. It was like a side project for Controlled Bleeding, and they have the track Mother with Roz Williams vocals. Well, I spent like $30 to get this. It's not that expensive now. You can find it for like $10, $15. But this is the exact same version that is on Death Mix. So if you picked up that horrible remix CD from Cleopatra Records, you already have this. You know, it's nice. It's a nice mix. I really do like it. I was playing it earlier in the video. But however, if you have Death Mix, just great. If you don't have Death Mix, great. You're not missing anything. But definitely don't go spend your money on a Controlled Bleeding CD if you don't like Controlled Bleeding. So, skip. And that brings me to my last two tracks. Not sure what to even say about these. So, the first one we're going to talk about is Beneath His Widow. And this showed up out of the blue in 2009 on the Catastrophe Ballet remastered, reissued release from Candlelight Records in 2009. I don't know if I said that already. It's weird. It's definitely Roz's vocals, emulating Bowie more than I've ever heard him emulate Bowie. And where did this track come from? Like, with all of the reissues that have happened over the years of Catastrophe Ballet, where did this suddenly come from? I'm at a loss. The promotional material that came out at the time said this was in a vault, and newly discovered vault recording of Roz Williams. I don't know if that's true. I really don't know. There's been a lot of debate over this. I would love to hear your thoughts on this track and the next track I'm about to talk about. Do you think this is a lost track? Did were there vocals of Roz lying around in a vault and somebody came in 2009, added some music to it, and bam, we got a brand new Roz Williams recording? I don't know. I mean, either way, it's nice to have it. It is I like the song. I just don't know what to make of it. Like, I hate feeling like I don't trust the story behind something. I don't know. Like I feel like the wool's being pulled over my eyes, but I don't know. Like, it's really a curious thing. Along with Catastrophe Ballet, we got also from Candlelight Records, Ashes reissue remaster in 2009, and this too had a lost Roz Williams song called Before the Rain. And if you're a fan of Valor, or Valor's Christian Death, or just that transition period of Christian Death in the early 80s, you were probably looking at this track and doing what I'm doing right now. Because one of the early B-sides from Christian Death was a song called, or Valor's Christian Death, I should say, in 85, was a song called After the Rain. It's an established Valor song. They played it live, you know, so there's never been any conjecture or theory or revelation or information that ever suggested that Roz had anything to do with the song After the Rain. Oddly enough, it appeared as a bonus track on an early remastered version of Catastrophe Ballet that came out from Contempo Records on CD and I think cassette. And the odd thing about that album was it was the clearest version, loudest version on CD that we had of Catastrophe Ballet. But we always thought it was odd that these two tracks, there were two tracks, it was After the Rain and Between Youth, were included on this CD. And we had no idea, like, why? Why would Valor throw these two tracks on here? So that sort of lends credence to the argument that this might be a Roz-involved track. But I don't hear Roz. Like, in Before the Rain, I don't hear Roz at all. I've listened to it many, many times. So what his involvement is with the song, I don't know. I don't believe Roz was really partaking in any instrumentation until later in his life. So I don't know what his contribution is to this song. I don't know if it's the lyrics, music. I don't know. But I don't hear Roz in Before the Rain as I do in Beneath His Widow. So, like I said, Beneath His Widow and Catastrophe Ballet, it's an interesting song, and I like it. I think it's a personal taste thing, whether or not you would like it. It's different. So, my recommendation would be to have it. Before the Rain, I don't know. I don't know if I can recommend that to a Roz collector until I know why it's considered a lost Roz track. Because all I hear is Valor. So, I don't know. That's my recommendation, and that's where we're at with the end of Christian Death. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. And I would love to hear what you think of Beneath His Widow and Before the Rain, and what you think the story is there. Because I don't know that anyone knows the real story about those two songs, except maybe Valor. So maybe he'll comment below. That would be great. And shed some light on these, because the material that came out at the time promoting these releases is pretty vague. So that's it for this video. Thank you all. It's another long video, but I knew Christian Death was going to be a long one. Next up is going to be Shadow Project and Dacus Kuroda and Roz Williams solo stuff. And then the last one, I'm getting some help from some friends that are a little more familiar with the noise efforts of Roz Williams on some PE, 1334, Helter, and anything else that I can figure out, like COINTELPRO maybe. I don't know. So that's coming. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.